Kaivalya Om Klim Kaivalya Om.
Namaste and welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam. Hopefully, we'll have an uninterrupted session tonight. As always, we begin this learning with mindfulness and deep reverence. And therefore, let us begin this class with 3 Oms as we take our attention and divert our focus to the source of Akasha, the temple where this element was taught and discovered as an expression of the highest consciousness. So in today's class, it is going to be a pretty straightforward class where we're going to explore how this concept of sounds emerged and how sounds became language. Not a theoretical discussion, but more from the point of view of sounds itself. All the various kinds of sounds that is possible by our mouth, by the vocal cords. And it's fascinating that thousands of years ago, in these ancient civilizations, especially in the Indian subcontinent, Sanskrit was a language that was essentially and is essentially derived from an intuitive awareness of sounds. One can study this at many levels, but what we are going to do in this class is just do a simple rudimentary coverage of the various sounds, the type of sounds, and what are the categories of these sounds, and why would they come up with these kind of letters like k and ch and g and bh and so on. What are those categories? Now, this is not a Sanskrit class. I am not qualified to teach Sanskrit, and it would take a lot of effort on my part to even begin there. But nevertheless, I think this is important for us to understand in the Akasha space, because when we get into mantras, chanting of mantras, Bijakshara mantras, we begin to appreciate that more than the meaning, because meaning is subjective. Meaning is open for many interpretations. And well, let me get that right. Interpretations change according to seasons, according to times, according to age, according to awareness, according to understanding. Correct? So they're not necessarily a fixed meaning to a word. What abundance means to a 5-year-old child is very different from what abundance would mean to a 25-year-old. What abundance means to a businessman will be very different from what abundance means to one who is a monk. Each one has his or her own interpretations of that particular word. So meaning is important because it generates the right, it channelizes the emotions, generates the right energy at that moment, whatever your interpretation is. But more important than that would be the pronunciation, the understanding of the energy of the sound per se. We have come so far ahead in our language and languages that we speak that we have taken sounds for granted. We just talk of speaking high volume, low volumes, and we talk of correct pronunciations in different languages. Yes, I feel uncomfortable when somebody cannot pronounce my name, so I correct them and say it is Sunder, not Sandar, and so on. And it's the same thing with me. When I have to pronounce somebody from Poland or German or Russia, then they have to teach me how to pronounce. So we do have we do pay attention to phonetics, pronunciation, and so on. But when we approach it from the point of mantras, from the point of view of this language Sanskrit, we begin to appreciate how thousands of years ago, this is not a language that was developed over time, and today we have a much developed version of Sanskrit than it was, let's say, 10,000 years ago. It's not like that. It has been the same. It was a completely and fully developed language ever since we have ever known, even before it was written down as a text. Because predominantly, Sanskrit as a language was taught to speak and to listen. It was only in this area, speaking and listening. Writing, drawing, all of them came much later. And therefore, all the Sanskrit ancient texts are called Shrutis. Shrutis is that which was heard, that which is heard. The entire learning, the paradigm of education was based purely on learning, not seeing. It has become so different today. We are able to grasp better, I guess, because we are able to see it. But then because we all see the same, what happens is our imagination is all completely colored by what we all see. If I tell you the word chair, or if I tell you the word lion, if I tell you the word sofa, you listen to these words, but in each of our minds, a version of sofa is created that need not necessarily be the same as the person sitting next to you. Each one of us imagine what the word sofa would mean. Each one of us imagine a camel, maybe based on our memories that we have seen earlier. But nevertheless, we get the opportunity to allow that vision or imagination. If I were to tell you rabbit with horns, what would you do? You would imagine rabbit with horns because we wouldn't have seen it. But that imagination, big rabbit, small rabbit, white rabbit, is it a hare? Is it a rabbit? And so on. Is it hopping around? Is it just still? Is it posing for you with its own horns? So all of these, each one of us, right from a 5-year-old to a 50-year-old, will imagine it differently. So the gamut of learning, the scope of learning, therefore, is very powerful when you listen. Because then you develop your own space and you become very creative in that learning. That is why Sanskrit is intuitively derived. That's why one word in Sanskrit is open to so many interpretations. Because that whole approach to that language is very different from what we are aware of in our generations in the last 200, 300, 400, 500 years, and even more. I mean, ever since the texts were written down, palm leaves, manuscripts were created thousands of years ago, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. Since then, the learning slowly changed. At one time, they wrote in order to preserve the knowledge. Nobody was given access to these. So this language is essentially based on sounds. And therefore, when we talk of mantras and chantings, we have to understand that these mantras and chantings are very similar to affirmations in English or in other languages, Hindi, Tamil, and all those languages. They are very close to those affirmations, but they are not substitutes to those affirmations. They are an energy source in itself, because the sounds that were derived for these mantras were essentially based on the energy of those sounds. So let us go back to the blackboard today. For many of you, this might just be, oh, I've done this, I know about it. But I am doing it for those of you who are not very well versed in Sanskrit or any of the Indian languages, who just want to understand this. And I hope I can do justice. There are hundreds of videos that teach these as basic courses in Sanskrit. So please do follow up with much better videos that could be available on YouTube. But nevertheless, without doing this, if I start teaching mantras or Vedic chants, I feel that I am not going to be able to do justice. So this will be an important class for me to launch as we go on into learning of Vedic chants, into learning of mantras, and so on, which is such an important part of our spiritual progress in discovering our divinity. How can we, through the energy of sound, create the reality that we desire? That is the whole idea here, right? The whole purpose of all of these classes is finally to realize, how can I be the God that I worship? How can I be the omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient entity? How can I experience that oneness with the universe? How can I, through earth, water, fire, air, and space, enrich my life? That's the beauty here. Anyway, so let's go back to the drawing board. So in this class, we are going to talk about Akasha, space, through the understanding of that space element through Sanskrit sounds. Okay. So I want to draw your attention to this image. We are going to be staring at this image for a while today in this class, and especially in the region of the mouth. And so in Sanskrit, what they did is and this is just my guess what they did. I don't know what they did, but it's just my guess. That's the way to speak about it. Is perhaps they discovered what all sounds that can come out of one's mouth, right? So let us start from the very beginning, at the base of your throat, where you see the number 1. It's called the gutturals, right? So the sound that came from there, from your throat, from the base of your throat, was called kanthya, kanthaya, or throat, guttural. What are those sounds? You can say it along with me or say it after me once you see these. The first were, let us call them consonants, and just to put it out there, classified some basics so you understand that I'm not simply rambling out without any basis. So these are bases in Sanskrit, but I'm not teaching a Sanskrit class. My focus is on the sounds that are emerging from the mouth. So the first is ka. Ka is an important bijakshara in many mantras, even in the Devi Upasana, in the Shakti Upasana, in the Khadgamala and so on. Ka becomes a very important, because it is one of the very first sounds. You know, the baby starts going, that ka is important. It's not easy. The baby begins with all the vowels, the pranas will come. But then once it starts getting the ka, then we know that the vocal cords are getting set. So the ka is a very important syllable. Ka, if you say ka, say ka, ka as in kite, ka, kite, ka. You'll see that the sound is emerging from the base of your throat, as different from pite or pile, right? That's coming from the lips. We'll come to that later. But these are sounds. So is that the only sound? No. What they said is, you can also allow some air to go with it and go ka, ka and ka, ka, ka. So a little bit of aspiration there, a little bit of air comes with ka. And now there is no such word in English that I can refer to for you to understand. And therefore I used a Sanskrit word, khaga. Khaga means bird, for example. Khaga is different from kaga. Kaga is different. Khaga, kha. So there is a ka and a kha. This you have to understand because this forms the basis of many pronunciations in Sanskrit, many Vedic chants and many slokas where we have to learn whether it was a ka or a kha. Okay? Because the combination of these with others creates a very different energy. Now, before I proceed, if you think, if I say something wrong, will it harm me and so on? Nothing ever harms you. What happens is, those words, those sounds become ineffective. We thrive in fear. So at the drop of a hat, we'll say, oh my God, if I chant this mantra wrong, something bad is going to happen to me. I wish we had that kind of control in space, that we can simply create something bad or something good that can happen to us. It won't. At the very least, it's going to become ineffective. That's it. At the very most, I would say. It will only become ineffective. So even before we go into pronunciations, understand that. So learn. When you start learning it properly and pay attention and take time to learn a language, giving it due reverence and respect, then the energy of that language comes alive. Ka and kha. Okay? Then comes ga. Ga is a common. So I used an English word there to explain ga. Ga as in God. That is simple. But what about gha? Ga, gha. Say that, ga, gha. So there is no English word that I know of. If you know, please type it down there or put it in your comment. Gha. There is no English word where you have to specifically pronounce it with that aspiration, if you will. So gha, I use this word ghata. Ghata is pot. Ghana, ghana. Ghana, ghana, neela. The grey clouds, the dense clouds, the dark clouds. So ghata is pot in Sanskrit. So Sanskrit, there is a difference between ga and gha. Ka, ka, ga, gha. So you see that? Ka, ka, ga, gha. All of this comes from the base of the throat. Now there is a nasal sound that's added on to this. A sound that can emanate from the base of your throat, but you can bring it through the nose. And that is nya. Ka, ka, gha, gha, nya. Nya as in sing. Sing, sing, ing. You see that ing, it goes deep down here. Ing. So, ka, ka, ga, gha, nya. Sing is not, I wouldn't say it is 10 out of 10. It's the exact reproduction of that sound. But it is close, just to give you an idea. Okay? Then comes an ungrouped version of sounds. There are other sounds that can also come from here. They're not grouped, and this is purely from a grammatical point of view. If you're learning Sanskrit, I just want for those of you who know the language to say, hey, this is not a nasal sound, this was not the consonant. What are these? So these are called ungrouped sounds. What are they? Ha. Ha is coming from your ha. Ha comes from there. Then aha, all of that also comes from there. But aha, rather, it's not the dot that you see, om, you see the om, and there is a dot on top, and aha, all of that also comes from the guttural region, from the base of the throat. Then there are vowels that come from here. Uh, as in fur, that sound. Right? You don't mistake U for A there. Just the sound. Pay attention to the sound. Fur, fur, So that and as in calm. Okay? So all of these sounds come from the base of the throat. So now when you read a mantra, find out which are the sounds that are emanating from here. Not that one is better than the other. This is how the whole Sanskrit language came about. Okay? Then there are many implications to this, but at this point we just have to understand, this was the science behind the sound. And it's so beautiful. Okay? So these are the kantya. Kantaya means that which came from the base of the throat. Okay? Then comes the next one. What is that? That is from the back roof of the mouth. The roof of the mouth, but from the back. Because the roof of the mouth is pretty long, correct? We have the back and the front. So there are sounds that emanate from the back roof of the mouth. The tongue has to be in touch with the back roof of the mouth for these sounds to emanate. So what are those? There are 4 consonants again. What are they? Ch, as in chalk, chocolate, ch, charana. When you say ch, observe how the back of your tongue has to touch the back roof of the mouth. Ch. Now is that only ch? Can you not say ch? You can, right? Ch. And therefore there is another alphabet. Ch, letter, right? Letter or alphabet. Some people distinguish between the two. But I'm just going to use either letter or alphabet. But this is what I'm talking about. One letter. Ch. Ch, ch. So there is no ch in English that I know of that you have to really pronounce ch. So there is, I'm giving you a Sanskrit example here. Churika. Churika is knife. Okay? Ch, ch. Then comes j. J as in jug. That is simple. Ch, ch, j. Then comes j. There is j. Jalaha. Jalaha is fish. Jalaha. J. So jala and jala means 2 different things. Jala means fish. Okay, so you can't tell fish and say jala. That won't be fish. Jala is fish. So this is how meanings change when we pronounce it differently. And so Sanskrit has taken it very seriously. In that language, they say, don't say ch, say jha. Ch, ch, j or j. Be mindful of saying those words. Then here also, there is a nasal sound. What is that nasal sound? The nasal sound is ch, ch, j, j, nya, nya. Like Punjab or punch is different from sing, sung. So you try those two. The one last one we learned was sung is different from Punjab, pancha, panchabhutas. Pancha is different, right? So ing is different now. There are 5 of these nasal sounds that you can pronounce. Okay, so look at how fascinating this is. I'm always fascinated. I just keep going back and repeating these letters just to understand the nuance of these sounds. Because I want to go back to that drawing board. And I think you should too. Because it's a fantastic exercise. Just repeat these and see how you feel it. And how can you perfect that pronunciation. Especially these nasal sounds. Because in English you just have n. But here, the N has got so many variations of sounds that can come from there. So, punch as in or Punjab. So, nya, nya, the back of the tongue touching the back roof of the mouth. Then there are ungrouped letters like ya. Like in ya, yes, we say, right? Yes, ya, ya, ya. Ya and sh. Sh as in sheep. Sh. Sh also the back tongue only touches. It's not the front, you're not touching the teeth, you don't need the lips, just sh. Sh, y, all these are other words that can come. And then there are vowels which are E and E. E. You might think I'm just opening my mouth this way. No, but watch what happens in the tongue. E. The tongue has to go up like this towards the roof of the back of the mouth. E and E. E as in fish and E as in deed. Fish and deed. E and E. Okay? And there is another one. A and I. A and I. A. You again have to go very close and touch the top. A and I to get the proper A. A as in pay. I as an island. I am. Right? That I is pretty simple in English. So these two vowels are there and it can form into English words as well. And except for what we don't find in English language. I'm using English merely as a reference. There could be other languages as well. In many of the Indian languages, all of these are found because Indian languages are predominantly derived from Sanskrit. And Tamil, which was even older than Sanskrit, share most of these in Sanskrit. So they also share in some of these alphabets are not found or letters are not found or were not found in Tamil. Now they have included it because Sanskrit and Tamil go together. Anyway, so those are merely points to note. But the sounds don't change because of that. So this is the second group called the palatal. Palatal or talavya. Talavya. If you remember in the water element, I think it was the water element, we talked about a kriya where the tongue touches the roof of the mouth and creates a sound, which is very, very beautiful for meditation. I don't know if any of y'all caught on to this, if y'all practice, but it goes like this. You can go louder or you can just go very soft with the mouth closed but just going. It's like a woodpecker pecking. If you have woodpeckers by a home, we do sometimes they come and create that sound. So this is talavya kriya. I'm just throwing it there because that talavya means that you are engaging the roof of the mouth to create a particular sound. So there is a kriya for this to help understand the water element. Anyway, so this is the second category of sounds. So we have already covered so many letters and alphabets based on that. The total number of alphabets or letters, as one would call it, is 50. Some people differ. They say there's only 49. It's not 50. Some people include these are all modern debates and differences, whether it's 49 or 50. I like to believe it's 50 because of the 50 petals in the total of 50 petals in the 6 chakras. And therefore, each petal is dedicated to one of these sounds. And we will learn that as we go. But if you don't know these sounds and just go to those letters, we will not understand. Okay. The third category is called Retroflex. Murdhanya. Murdhanya is the front roof of the mouth now. The back roof is over. Now we come to the front roof of the mouth. What are the sounds that can come from there? T. T. T is as in teeth. T as in Tom, teeth, right? Tom, teeth, all has T. Now, there is in Sanskrit, of course, they won't stop with just T. They will say T. There is also a T. There is no English word that I know of which has a T in it. I can't say Tom. There is no word. So we will stick to that T as Patha, Pitha. Pitha. Pitha means bench. Okay, so in Sanskrit there is a difference between T and T. Then comes D. There also you have to touch the front roof of the mouth now. Again, not necessarily the teeth. We are not come to that. It is just the front roof. Just say D and see where the tongue goes. D. D. D as in dog. Correct? Wonderful. Now, D. There is another D. Again, how you want to say demon, it will still be D. You want to say dog, it will still be D. It can't be D. So, D again has no English equivalent. We won't even try to put English words there because it will be completely wrong. Just to understand there is no English equivalent is the best approach. And if you read in other sites and they do put words there, it perhaps to give you an idea what that means, but there is really no English word that I know of that goes duh, right? Unless you're using it as a figure of speech, like an onomatopoeia, where you're creating a sound to express something. But in English language, they don't have duh as an alphabet or any word that pronounces that. So, dadha. Dadha is the back molars, the back teeth is called dadha. Dha. So there is an example I wanted to give you, or perhaps some of these words you may not come across. I was busy looking up Sanskrit dictionary for these kind of words to come up with, just to share with you that there are words that pay attention, and we have to pay attention between d and dh. Some of these like dh are rare that you would come across, but nevertheless they are there. Now there also there is a nasal one, and fortunately this is easier. What is that? Na, na. Again, take the tongue and touch in the front. Na, narayana, na, na, right? Na. There is no English word for na. There is na as in nothing, no, but that will come to that. But this is na, like dharna. So Narayana, na is coming there. So again, this is an important sound. Important sound because I put the word Narayana there because Narayana has to be pronounced like this. If you say Narayana, na as a no, then it is not the right way to pronounce, and therefore the efficacy of that chant, of that sound becomes lesser. If this sound na, ra, there is a na and na there. Narayana. So there are two nas there coming. You have to understand the difference between the first na, which we'll come to, and the na that we are studying now. Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. So we have to understand that. Okay? So this is how fascinating it is. They were very serious about creating these sounds, and therefore they created mantras. Okay? There is no other magic to this other than pure energy and vibrations of sounds that we can create in our inner space. And that's the beauty of it. In our inner space. Then the deity manifests because the energy has created that vibration to draw that sound into a form. And manifestation occurs again in our consciousness. So, what are the ungrouped sounds here? R. R as in Rome. Okay, and sh as in shy. Now the last one was sh, and this is sh. So I thought shy comes close to this. That was sh as in Sheila, and this is shy. So there is a difference the way we pronounce the sh, sh, though we spell it same. In Sanskrit, the alphabet itself changes. Sh and sh comes here. Okay. Then the vowels that are used here is r as in rig or rishi, rishi, r. Important word. This is murdhanya because this is where though ra is as in Ram is there, that element of that sound comes from here. And then there is this word which is not used in Sanskrit, in what we call post-Vedic Sanskrit or post-classical Sanskrit, I believe. I have not come across any of the Vedic chants that we know of. There could be one or two exceptions. But if I do, I will share it. And if you do have a chance to learn it, I'll make a difference. But there is really no, this is very rarely used, or perhaps not used in the modern Sanskrit as we call it. In the last maybe 3,000-4,000 years, they haven't really used this word. This is r, a little more stress on r. I don't even know how to do that. Because if there were words, I would have practiced. So I can't demonstrate that. So, but these are the words, that is Murdhanya, the front roof of the mouth. It's important to understand because these trigger certain centers in the brain. The way your tongue touches and those nerves are connected to certain centers in the brain. The front roof of the mouth is connected, it goes very close to the pineal gland, and therefore sounds that have these activate the higher dimensions, open up the pineal gland. Not right away. It takes ages for that sound to really be so perfect and clear in the head, but it starts creating that connections. Okay, all of these have nerve centers that are connected to the brain, and therefore when we learn Sanskrit as a language, when we learn to pronounce the mantras, when we learn to pay attention to the sound patterns, the neural patterns in the brain begin to change because of the connections. And that is the beauty and the power of this language. So, retroflex. This is the third category. Then comes the fourth category. The fourth category is perhaps more common, more easily understood, becomes more easier. It's called the dental. Dantya, dental. Dantya is the Sanskrit word for dental. So you see there again the and the, dental we say. That dental is not the same as Dantya, the. This is the, as in Dantya, and we'll see what these are. Now here, the tip of your tongue now touches the teeth, the back of your teeth. So what are they? The, right? The. Now, there is no English word with the that I know of. I could be wrong. I thought about it. What is a word that could start with the? And we didn't come across one. We didn't. The as in tata. Tata means father in Sanskrit. One of the words. Tata. So, the, right? Then comes sorry. The and the. Say that to yourself. The and the. Now this the, I thought we could use Thomas. Thomas comes, you can't say Thomas. Thomas. So there is an emphasis there. The. The as in Thomas. The as in Theodore, right? Theodore also comes. Theodore, Thomas. These are words, names of people. Not necessarily English language. These are perhaps Hebrew, I would think, but nevertheless, they are names that are common today. Thomas especially. Thomas has become Tom, so that's again a different pronunciation. But here, the is Thomas. The is Tata. The and the. The. The as in Dantya, I said, right? The as in Dantya. But when we say in English, dental, it becomes different. So this is the. So the English word the tree outside, we use that. When you listen to the sound of the, you will see it is exactly as the, or very, very, very close to the. Correct? Deva is the. But we say that in English, we say divine, D. Their divine is different. The da is different from the in Sanskrit. So we have to understand that there is a reason why we separate these languages and learn them separately. We use English words purely to understand it. If we have learned education is predominantly in English and so on, then we use it as a reference, a starting point. But at some point, you have to completely give up one language and go into this particular language. Spanish has a lot of these sounds which are not generally found in English language. And therefore, it always intrigues me. Some of the way when I hear them speak, I don't understand that language very well. But when I hear them speak, either on YouTube videos or just let them speak, I kind of almost, it's like listening to a mantra or a chant. So that is also a very fascinating language with a lot of sounds. The as a the, Now the has the, dhara, dhara, current in Sanskrit. There's just one word. There could be, all of these have so many words in Sanskrit. Ta, ta, the, dha as in dhara. Okay. Now there is also a nasal sound here. And what is that? This is the simplest of all. Na, because your tongue touches, and this is a common sound across all languages. Na, na as a no, na as a nothing, na as a now. All of this is a simple one. Na. So this is a sound that comes from dantya. Then comes the ungrouped sounds. You have la, na, la. You see, all of the tongue is the same. Ta, tha, the, dha, na, la, sa, sa is also same. La, sa, and there are vowels. L, l. It goes like that. So the word that could come close to this is like cattle, 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 jewelry, 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 you get that, jewelry. So that's where it comes. This is there in Rudram and other Vedic chants. You come across this. But there is another one, an extension of this. So people sometimes, when you say they say there are 48 or 49 and not 50, because they eliminate these. They say nobody uses this, so we won't have them. But there is this in officially in Sanskrit language. There is a l also, but I've never come across that alphabet or letter, if you will. So these are the sounds that come from dantya. I know this might be a boring class, but I find it fascinating. So there's just one more category. I promise you it won't take long. But I would like you to revise these, write it down and practice the sounds, because this forms the basis of mantras. Then you can learn any amount of mantras. Any Vedic chants becomes easy when your tongue begins to understand the nuances of these sounds. It's so important, especially when we use sound as a means for spiritual practice. The last category is Oshtaya, where we use the lips. Labial. Lips. Oshtaya. What are the sounds? Pa. Now you have to use your lips, right? Pa is a simple sound that comes out, right? Pa as in parrot. That's easy. That's a common sound that we all make. Pa as in parrot. But Sanskrit doesn't stop there. They will say, why not pa as well? Pa, 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 pa. Say pa. Say the pa with a lot of air that comes to the mouth as well, with a little bit of force. Then you get pa. Phalanetra. Shiva is described as Phalanetra. There are many pronunciations. People say Balanetra and so on in bhajans and singing, but it's Phalanetra, Phala. So Pa comes from Phala in Sanskrit. Phala is different from Pala. Phala. So there is fruit. Now in other languages like Marathi and perhaps Hindi, it becomes a Fa, right? In Hindi, is this a Fa? Sometimes it can go both ways in Hindi. It's been ages since I really went back to grammar, but I could be wrong for those of you who know Marathi or Hindi. But I know Fa. I used to think this as Fa, not Pa, but Fa. But in Sanskrit, it is more like Pa. Pa, Pa. Okay? Then comes Ba. Ba is again a very common sound. Ba as in bison, ba as in ball, ba as in bat, right? So ba, that's common. But what about bha then? Bha, bhairava. So Kala Bhairava it is, not Kala Bhairava. There is Bhairava, there's a bha there. Bhasma bhushitangasai, bhasma. So bhasma means ashes, bhasma. So there is a necessity to understand the difference between ba and bha, especially when we sing and chant mantras. There is also a nasal sound for this, and that is the simplest of all, ma, where we use lips, ma. Ma is different from na. You see, my lips are not joining in na, ma. That's why is a sound that comes from the guttural, but but the lips have to be closed in order to say that. And therefore I didn't use put im and aha anywhere in any of these categories, but those are also two more sounds that are used a lot in Sanskrit. Nevertheless, ma as in mother, ma as in matra, matrika, matra, all of that, ma. There is no ma. There is nothing like that. It's just ma. So you see in these nasal sounds, if you see, there is only one. There are not two versions of that. But in all the other consonants, if you will, na and ma and all of these are also consonants, but they are nasal consonants. In all of them, there is only one sound. It's very difficult for us to make a sound that sounds different from ma. You can't go ma. You can't go like that. It doesn't change anything there in principle. So ma is ma, na is na, is na, is nga. That's right. All these are only one layer. But when you go to pa, bha, bha, then you go to ka, ga, gha, cha, ja, jha. Then you see all of them. Ka, t, th, the. All of these are different. Then comes these ungrouped, where you again use the lips, not necessarily to join them, but lips are involved when we say b. B as in victory, b as in Varanasi, b. Right? Lips are important. Then vowels. Vowels are oo. You have to use lips there, right? Just like you have to close the lips. You have to shape your lips to pronounce this oo and oo. Oo and oo. Oo as in cook and oo as in cool. Oh, it's so cool. We stress it a little more. But though we have two O's in cook, we don't say cook, right? We say cook and cool. So I just thought I might use that. It might appear the same, but the pronunciations are different. Oo and oo have a role to play across many languages. They do understand the difference between the two. And then O and ow. O as in go, ow as in owl. Very simple. Here again, both are used across many languages. O and ow. So these are the vowels that comprise the fifth. Now, if you see here in the last and concluding slide here, it's very fascinating how you see a triangle and there are five categories. The $1 million question is, we have 5 elements, we have 5 categories of sounds. Can they be ascribed to different elements? Maybe, maybe not. But it is something we need to explore and understand. Maybe there is a combination. And just like one element does not, when I talk of elements, I'm talking of earth, water, fire, air, and space. That's what we've been studying over the last 60 odd classes. Okay? So, because we are part of that. Every part of us has a combinations of these 5 elements. So, why not sounds as well? Sounds are also categorized in 5. It's not a coincidence. And there is a reason why they categorize. It's not categorized based on some blind belief. Oh, 5 elements, or we should also have 5 categories. They've explained to you why. There are guttural sounds, there is palatal sounds, there are sounds that are retroflex in nature, there are sounds that are dental, there are sounds that comes from the lips and labial. So you have kanthaya, talavya, murdhanya, dantya, and osthaya. All these are different categories of sounds that can emanate from the mouth. I hope you found this information. If it has been new for you, for those of you who don't know Sanskrit, you perhaps found this fascinating. I've always found it fascinating to see how much of effort would have gone in, and how many hundreds of years perhaps it would have taken for some language like this to even develop into its fullness. And therefore, then when Vishwamitra and other sages came up with mantras like the Gayatri mantra, They knew what they are coming up with. It's not a matter of blind beliefs and faiths and all of that religious thing. The reason why we miss the magic of these sounds is because we box them into a religion, box them into pleasing a god, otherwise she will get angry with me, he will get angry with me, so I have to say this, I have to get initiated. The whole concept of initiation into mantras and chants were that the teacher would explain to you how to pronounce these sounds. That was initiation. There's no magic to an initiation. A person says, okay, say Shri, not Shri. Because in Sanskrit there's Sa, there is Sha, there is Sha. There are so many variations. So simply saying Sri or Shri, what should I say? How would you know? So a teacher has to teach you that. That is all there is to initiation. Let us not add so much drama around it that, oh my God, I cannot chant it, something will go wrong. No. Learn the magic of sounds and watch these deities come alive. These energy systems come alive. Then doors of consciousness begins to open on its own. There are many layers of consciousness. The more subtler these elements are, like the earth is a very gross element. I can understand earth through the food I eat, right? To the things I touch. There is earth, there is water, easy to understand. Fire becomes a little tricky. Air becomes even more trickier. Space is the trickiest of them all. Trickiest because they are very subtle. So how do I understand this? How do I grasp this? The more subtle it is, the more powerful it is. Because it is in that inner space, through sounds, we are creating or sowing seeds of our reality. And therefore, my dear friends, my dear brothers and sisters, mark this lesson down, go through this and use this as the basis of watching other videos that talk to you more about these sounds. Listen to different teachers teaching you this basics of Sanskrit. You can, of course, proceed and learn grammar and combinations of sounds. The sound pattern changes when A and U becomes O. That's why you have Om, Akara, Ukara, Makara, which is that is the ending. Akara and Ukara, A and U together becomes O. A different sound emerges. So these are simply basic letters. When we start combining them, different letters, different sounds emerge, and therefore we need to pay attention to the combination of sound. It's like two atoms colliding and releasing a potential energy. It's the same thing with two sounds. Two sounds are combining and releasing. Om is a beautiful energy. I went to an ashram. For some reason they broke it apart and started say Aum. Personally, I don't agree with that. The whole idea of sound is when they are joined together, pay attention to what is the energy that comes when two letters are joined. A and U becomes O, not Ow. That's a different sound. May have different energies, but Om. So pay attention to these sounds. Then the learning becomes very interesting, very intriguing. And then even if you have a handful of mantras to chant, when you learn Vedic chants, paying attention to the sounds, and I'll leave you with that, you will begin to rewire your brain. And new neurons, creative neurons, powerful neurons that open up greater channels in your ability to comprehend things become a reality. And thus spirituality becomes a reality and not a matter of faith. Thank you for your patience and for allowing me to teach this basic but very powerful lesson in Sanskrit. Hopefully we will take it from there and explore this further through the magic of sounds that is given to us by our ancient teachers, sages, yogis, and rishis. So with 1,000-fold salutations to these amazing gurus in the past, to the avatars and the beings that brought out this energy of sound to us, I bring this class to an end. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.